So welcome to Spiritist Conversations, a informal podcast where we sit down with friends to talk about Spiritism and life in an unscripted and unplugged way. Today we are very excited to be here in London at the British Union of Spiritist Society / Spiritist Society of London meeting place near Bethnal Green, if I'm not mistaken. And it's really a pleasure to see lots of folks. And on top of that, we have the pleasure of having here a great friend of Spiritism in general, Miss Janet Duncan. It is a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
It is really great. And we also have our friend Johnny here. And so I'm going to start with Johnny really quick to ask you, just say a couple of words. How did you end up here today, Johnny?
I'm actually been with the group since the inception.
Mm-hmm.
And
when was that?
That was 2010.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is my regular meeting place. I'm here every Thursday as much as I can. Not every Thursday, but as much as I can.
Wonderful. And how about you, young lady? I don't think you've been here enough, have you? This is probably your first time, isn't it?
You really think so? Well, I don't always come to this particular meeting, but I come here to the British Union every Wednesday, as we have a study group in the morning.
That's wonderful. And Janet, tell me a little bit about how you first got connected to Spiritism.
Well, I was in Brazil because I lived in Brazil for 30 years. And I would perhaps mention also that I've been a natural medium since I was 4 years of age, but it was there, and I thought it was just something normal, natural, everybody had. Nobody talked about it, but it was a very private, personal thing, and that was it. But the time came when I started to take more notice of things.
Which is hard not to when you are a natural medium, right?
Yes. And eventually I had the impression that I needed to search for something and that it was very important. And I was always thinking, well, you know, what am I looking for? But the spiritual companions were very insistent that it was very important. And eventually they said to me, because I'd pestered them so much about, you know, well, what am I looking for? How can you look to find something if you haven't got a clue what it is you're looking for? So then they very reluctantly, with a great big sigh, so I came out one day and said, well, when you find it, you'll know you've found it. Well, I wasn't very happy with that information. I gave him a very sarcastic reply, mentally, of course. But my wanderings around took me to the Spiritist Federation in São Paulo. Mm-hmm. And I eventually... I knew something about Kardec, and I decided in the end that I would buy the Spirits book for the one reason that when I looked at question number 1, it had an unexpected question there for me.
Yes. What is God?
Yes, because everybody always talks about who is God, who is God, who is God. And I felt that there's something not right there. That question isn't right. And then when I saw the what is God, I said, here's something different. And by the time I'd got to the middle of the 3rd chapter, I knew that I had found what I was looking for.
And do you think that at that time the mentors and guide then turned around and made a witty remark from the other side, as in, aha, we told you were going to find it?
They didn't seem to. I didn't notice it. Maybe they did. They probably did. But I didn't notice it. I was so thrilled that I finally, this is it. I knew it was going to be the most important thing in this life.
and always starts with generally what it does with all of us, or at least most of us, with the Spirit's book, which is an incredible book. We can go on for hours. But I think you took it a step further, and you said, I'm going to help folks get to know Spiritism a little bit.
Well, no, I didn't actually, because I was so involved in it myself, and there was so much to read, and one thing and another. I was so engrossed in that. But quite soon after this, I had I had an impulse. It was a bit more than that. It was just after the Pingafogel program. And the
Pingafogel program, for some folks who might not be familiar with it or listening, was a series of televised debates in Brazil that were really a milestone in Brazilian Spiritist history, I would say.
Absolutely. Because also it put Chico Xavier on the map.
Yeah. And he got grilled by all sorts of folks. Yeah, fantastic.
Yes. And that whole episode took me to Uberaba to see him, to get to know him. And I was very impressed, and I started to go and visit him every month.
From São Paulo to Uberaba every month.
Yes. And I mean, it's a long journey.
Yeah, it's quite a trek.
It's a long journey, everything. And then, to my amazement, the third time I visited him, and that meant only 3 months, we were queuing up to get to talk to him, and he saw me coming, and he immediately called out to me and said, "Janet, you've got to translate the gospel." I said, "What?" And, I just couldn't believe it. It took me several years before I really decided, I think I should do it.
It's not exactly something that you just take willy-nilly. It takes a little bit of time to grasp that idea, because it's not an easy undertaking.
Well, especially the gospel, to the responsibility of translating the gospel, I thought, first of all, why me? But of course, I suppose it was rather obvious to other people, perhaps, because I was the only English Spiritist in Brazil.
Mm-hmm. They were probably saying, "Why not you?"
Yeah. But it took me 7 years to complete it.
Mm-hmm. And I imagine that it was a fantastic experience to see the final product. Tell me about when you first saw the final book in your hands. That must have been pretty special.
Yes, it certainly was. And that was already when I'd come back here to London. I came back to London in 1981. And I can't remember the date now when I published it eventually. But it was very special, yes.
Fantastic. Did you know that, Johnny?
Yep.
Did you know that story?
I've known Janet for
a while.
Years.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think? Have you had a pleasure of actually holding the book and reading the book?
Yeah, that's the book we use every week to study. We use her translation to study every
over
week.
Here, huh? Yeah,
that's
pretty fantastic. Yeah. Yeah, and we have a couple of folks coming in here, and that just shows how professional this podcast is in our London studios, which is the room here at BUS. But we wanted to register this fantastic opportunity, and our thanks to you, Janet.
Not at all.
For this.
Thank you for coming, and now we're looking forward to your very important talk for us today.
Not as excited as I was to find out that I was actually going to meet you. I've read the translation; it was great, and I think a lot of folks who are unable to read in Portuguese, especially earlier on, will be thankful. And so, thank you so much for talking to us. And is there anything else that you look forward to these days? I am sure that you have continued to study and read Spiritist material in general. And is there any advice that you leave for us or for anybody else who's listening about Spiritism?
Put into practice what you read and what you study. Because it's not enough for us to just read it, probably agree with it, like it. If we want to make spiritual progress, we have to work to put it into practice. That's the key.
That is a great message for all of us. And Johnny, how about you? Any words of wisdom for us that you can leave us here with before we take off? Can you tell us a little bit about the activities that we have here and how often you come every week?
Yeah, right now we're only meeting once a week, and we do the studying, and it's more like a collective instead of just like sitting down and having to pay attention. So we discuss and we share
very
experiences.
Interactive format.
It's really good. I think it's very interactive and very dynamic. And it's just, I think that the idea is to learn as much as we can about ourselves so we can put everything into practice on our daily basis.
Just like Janet said, yes. And if folks want to know more about the Spirit Society of London, where should they go? Do you guys have...
There is a website. I'm not really... also, what is the website? You can go to Bus, and on the Bus website you'll find the links.
And that's www.bus.org.uk.
Yes.
And for those of you like me who like really bad jokes, just get on a bus, people.
There you go.
You know, get to know more about this. And you can find links to Spirit Society of London. I believe you guys are also on Facebook. I think there's also a page there. So it's, one great way of getting a hold of you.
Yes.
So thank you, Johnny. Thanks for the time. Thank you so much, Janet. It's really a pleasure. And that's it. And that wraps up our Spiritist conversation. And we hope that you continue to listen to us. Thanks very much.